to have to pivot. And you do, because that first sellout, we said, great, let's 10x
Can go, oh my gosh, she has loved us so much.
are true, and you're able to show up in a space really organically and authentically.
Ghislaine Maxwell's sitting in prison right now, and she's not talking about appeals or how bad the food is. She's dropping names, and one name that came out, Meghan Markle. Yeah, that Meghan, the Duchess turned podcast host turned jam entrepreneur. Maxwell supposedly pointed right at her and said there's a document out there. Not just any document, a CV, but this isn't the kind you'd send in for acting gigs. This one allegedly shows a completely different side of Meghan's life before the royals. One involving circles and arrangements that never made it into any Suits reunion special. The phrase being whispered, playing the adult game. Vague enough to stay out of hot water, specific enough to make your jaw drop. And here's the thing, this isn't coming from some random blogger. This is Ghislaine Maxwell, the woman who was literally at the center of Jeffrey Epstein's world. So when she names someone, even from behind bars, people listen. Now, before we dive into what's actually in this CV and why Meghan's gone completely silent, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications because this gets so much wilder. Go ahead and like this video too. Trust me, you're gonna wanna share this one. Let's get into it. So, what's actually supposed to be?
So how does it all look? Is my hair good? Do I, so
The States, you don't grow up with the same.
In this CV. According to what's floating around, it paints Meghan's pre-royal years in a completely different light. We're talking less aspiring humanitarian, more high-end socialite, navigating some seriously murky waters. The kind of waters where people don't ask too many questions about how you got the invitation in the first place. And we're not talking about showing up to a party once or twice. Maxwell supposedly described her as someone who moved through those circles with ease, someone who understood the game, someone who knew exactly how things worked in that world. And when we're talking about Epstein's world, let's be clear, the game wasn't exactly wholesome networking events and charity galas. It was power, access, and arrangements that stayed behind closed doors. The kind of stuff that people in the know just understood without anyone having to spell it out. She allegedly knew the players, knew the patterns, knew how the whole system operated. That's what Maxwell's supposedly saying. Not that Meghan accidentally wandered into the wrong room at a party.
Not confirm Maxwell is telling the truth, right? She is a convicted sex trafficker who was sentenced to—
That she knew what she was doing, where she was, and who she was around. Now think about the image we've been sold for years. Meghan as this struggling actress trying to make it in Hollywood. The girl who just wanted to do good in the world. The humanitarian who cared about clean water and women's empowerment. That's the story we got when she met Harry, right? But if Maxwell's claims have any truth to them, there's this whole other chapter that never made it into any of those puff pieces. A chapter where she wasn't just trying to book acting gigs and attend charity events, where she was someone who moved in circles most people don't even know exist. Here's why this lands differently than your average tabloid trash. Maxwell isn't some random person with an axe to grind. She's not a bitter ex-friend or a jealous competitor trying to tear someone down. She was there, right in the middle of it all. She saw who came and went. She knew everyone in that world, what they wanted, how they operated, what they were willing to do to get access.
She is always at the heart of all of this. This woman is a terrible thing, and she's known Meghan Markle for quite some time.
For years, she was literally the person who made introductions, who opened doors, who knew where all the bodies were buried. So when she points at someone like Meghan, even from behind bars, people actually pay attention. It's not gossip. It's someone who was in the room saying, yeah, she was there too. Because if there's smoke, Maxwell knows exactly where the fire was. She's not guessing. She's not speculating. She was the one lighting the matches. And that's what makes this so different from every other Meghan conspiracy theory that's floated around over the years. This isn't internet detectives piecing together random photos. This is someone who was actually part of that world naming names. The defenders jumped in immediately, right? Called it slander, desperation, a pathetic attempt to drag others down from someone who's already lost everything. And look, I get it. Maxwell's credibility is completely shot. She's already behind bars, already infamous. Why would anyone believe a word she says? But here's what's interesting. everything.
The stand yesterday giving us more disturbing details as to how Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein recruited the girls and what they were asked to do.
She's got nothing to gain and everything to lose by making stuff up now. She's not getting out any faster. She's done. So why throw Meghan's name into the mix unless there's something real behind it? What's the point? Just to cause chaos? Just to make headlines? Listen, Maxwell's already the most hated woman in America. Adding one more person to the list doesn't change anything for her. It doesn't get her anything. But it does make her life way harder with people who have serious money and serious reach. So either she's just being spiteful for absolutely no reason, or she's saying it because it's true and she just doesn't care anymore about protecting anyone. Now here's where things get even more interesting. Maxwell's claims aren't just floating around in a vacuum. There's this whole other layer that was already bubbling up before any of this leaked. Turns out people were calling Meghan a close companion to Prince Andrew back during those years. And I'm not talking about someone who met him once at a royal charity event and took a photo. Close companion.
So with that said, this is what we're talking about now around.
That's the exact phrase that kept coming up. And listen, word choice matters here. Close companion doesn't mean you bumped into someone at a party. It means time spent together, real time. It means familiarity. It means being in rooms that most people never get invited to. Seeing things that don't make it into the official photos. That's what close companion implies. And when you're talking about Prince Andrew during that specific time period, we all know what kind of circles he was running in. We all know who his friends were. Get this, people were saying Meghan knew Virginia personally, not knew of her, knew her. As in they'd actually met, actually spent time around each other, actually had interactions. And supposedly she had firsthand knowledge about what went down in those circles. Firsthand. That means she wasn't hearing rumors or reading about it in the news later. She was there. She saw things. She knew what was happening in real time. Now here's what really stands out. Word was going around that she could be expected to tell the truth.
To help satisfy Epstein's insatiable appetite. And Kate testified that she never recruited any other girls for Maxwell and Epstein.
About all of it. That's such a weird way to phrase things, right? Could be expected, not will definitely, or is known for being honest. Could be expected. Like people were hoping she'd come through, but weren't entirely sure. Like there was some question mark hanging over whether she'd actually be straight if push came to shove. Because here's the thing about Meghan and truth. It's complicated. We've seen her play fast and loose with facts before. Remember the whole Finding Freedom situation, that book that came out about her and Harry? She swore up and down she had nothing to do with it, said she didn't help the authors, didn't feed them information, had no involvement whatsoever, and people believed her because why would she lie about something like that? Then boom, turns out she'd been working with the authors the whole time. Behind the scenes, feeding them information, helping them shape the narrative exactly how she wanted it told. The whole innocent, I had nothing to do with it thing, complete nonsense. She got caught.
Good morning.
Good morning, good morning.
In the dark, behind the walls, but those prison walls cannot stop her from talking, Ghislaine.
And it wasn't like some small detail she misremembered. It was the entire premise. She looked people in the eye and said one thing, and the truth was the complete opposite. So when something like this Maxwell situation drops and people are wondering if Meghan's being straight about her past, it's not coming out of nowhere. She's already shown she'll bend the truth when it suits her. She's already proven she'll deny things even when there's a paper trail showing otherwise. So why would this be any different? Why would anyone just take her word for it now when she's already been caught before? And that's the thing, this whole close companion to Prince Andrew label isn't just gossip. It's people who were around back then saying she wasn't some random person in the background. She was close to him during the exact years when everything with Epstein was happening, during the years when Andrew was spending time at Epstein's properties, flying on his planes.
Prince Andrew and the businessman and convicted child sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. We know Prince Andrew got
being photographed with people he really shouldn't have been around. Meghan was supposedly right there in the mix, seeing it all unfold. Right when it seemed like things might actually come out into the open, everything got shut down. There was this whole push to release Epstein's files. You know, the ones everyone's been talking about for years. The ones that supposedly have all the names, all the details, all the stuff that's been kept under wraps. And just when it looked like they might actually see the light of day, boom, locked away. Not happening. The official word, protecting victims' privacy and safety. And okay, that sounds reasonable on the surface, right? You don't want to expose people who've already been through hell. That makes sense. But here's where it gets weird. At the same time, everything's getting locked down. People are also saying there's nothing significant in those files anyway. Nothing that would change what the public already knows about the whole situation.
Blends and motivational quotes on linen napkins. But that brand only works if people believe the foundation, if they trust that the person.
Wait, what? So if there's nothing there, if it's all just paperwork and stuff we already know about, why lock it down like it's nuclear launch codes? Why not just release it, let people see there's nothing shocking and move on? The whole, there's nothing to see here but you can't see it anyway thing doesn't exactly inspire confidence, you know? Here's the thing about secrecy. It always breeds suspicion. Always. Doesn't matter what the topic is. When you tell people there's nothing important in something and then refuse to show it to them, you've basically guaranteed they'll believe the opposite. It's just human nature. We all know this. So either the people making these decisions don't understand basic psychology, or they know exactly what they're doing and they're okay with the suspicion, because showing what's actually in there would be way worse. And get this, before all the files got locked away, multiple sources were out there warning Prince Andrew to brace himself.
And those allegations were thrown out of a court case that Virginia Roberts brought in the US.
Brace himself for what was about to come out. That's not casual language. That's not, hey, some old paperwork might mention you. That's something bad is about to go public and you need to prepare for impact. You don't tell someone to brace themselves unless something's about to hit them hard. Think about what that means. People who had access to information, people who knew what was in those files, were actively warning Andrew that he should be worried, not might want to be aware, should be worried. That tells you everything about what's actually sitting in those locked away documents. It's not nothing. It's something big enough that people with inside knowledge felt the need to give him a heads up. Articles were dropping before everything got shut down, telling Andrew to prepare himself. Journalists don't write headlines like that based on nothing. They write them because sources are whispering, because people who've seen what's in there know it's not good.
In the dark, behind the walls, but those prison walls cannot stop her from talking, Ghislaine Maxwell. She wasn't discussing prison food or...
Even if the public doesn't get to see it, the people who matter already know what's there. And they were worried enough to start warning people. Now here's what should bother everyone, regardless of how you feel about Meghan. She hasn't said a single word about any of this. Not one statement. Not one carefully worded denial, not even a vague social media post about rising above negativity or staying focused on what matters. Just complete radio silence. Nothing. Instead, what are we getting? Lifestyle brand rollout, Instagram posts about her latest venture. American Riviera Orchard, now rebranded as Ever. Beautifully curated photos of overpriced jam jars and artisan candles that probably smell like lavender fields and cost more than most people's grocery bill. The whole wholesome entrepreneur routine playing out like absolutely nothing's happening in the background. Like Maxwell never said her name. Like none of this exists.
It's been revealed that Prince Andrew hosted the late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein as well as Ghislaine Maxwell and Harvey Weinstein at the...
And listen, that silence is deafening. Because Meghan has never been shy about clapping back when she feels wronged. Never. This is someone who's called out major media outlets. Someone who's done tell-all interviews where she aired out everything. Someone who's written pieces and released statements going after anyone who she felt crossed her. When the narrative doesn't suit her, she fights it. Hard. She doesn't just sit there and take it. So why not now? Why not come out swinging against Maxwell's allegations? Why not have her team issue a statement calling this whole thing baseless and malicious? Why not fire back at what's being said about her? She's never had a problem defending herself before. She's built her entire post-royal brand on speaking up, on telling her truth, on not staying silent when people attack her. That's literally her whole thing. But suddenly, with this, nothing. And that's weird, really weird, because this isn't some tabloid saying she wore the wrong dress to an event.
Every time you think the Meghan Markle circus can't get messier, someone finds a way to prove you wrong. And this time, the grenade...
This isn't commentary about her parenting or her relationship with the royals. This is Ghislaine Maxwell, pointing at her from prison and saying she was part of Epstein's world. That's about as serious as allegations get. And she's just ignoring it, posting about jam. Here's the thing. There's really only one reason you stay silent in a situation like this. You're scared of what comes next. Because if you deny something and then proof shows up that you weren't telling the truth, you're done. Finished. There's no coming back from that. And if you start pushing back hard and people push back harder, everything comes out. Every message, every conversation, every receipt, everything you've tried to keep private becomes public. Meghan's built her entire post-royal brand on authenticity and transparency, right? The whole I'm telling my truth thing, the girl boss who refuses to be silenced.
She told me that the photo does not look good for Prince Andrew.
This actually isn't new information.
But how do you sell authenticity when you're being accused of hiding a massive chunk of your past? How do you launch a lifestyle empire based on trust when people are questioning whether you've been honest about anything? And it's not like this is her first credibility hit. The Finding Freedom thing already proved she's willing to say one thing when the truth is something else entirely. She denied involvement completely, and then it came out she'd been working with the authors all along. So when something like this Maxwell situation drops, people aren't giving her the benefit of the doubt anymore. They're not thinking, oh, she'd never lie about something this big. They're thinking, well, she's already lied before, so why would this be different? Let's talk about the brand for a second, because that's really what's at stake here. Meghan has spent years positioning herself as this empowered woman who walked away from royal life and built something new.
So here's the thing. Every time you think the Meghan Markle circus can't get any messier, someone lobs another grenade.
The feminist icon, the humanitarian who just wants to make the world better through organic tea blends and $50 jam jars. That's the image she's selling. The woman who found her voice and refuses to be silenced. The one who's all about authenticity and living your truth. And people bought into it. Because who doesn't love a good underdog story? But here's the problem. That brand only works if people believe the foundation. If they trust that the person selling them empowerment is actually being real. And when allegations surface that maybe there's a whole chapter of her life that involved playing a very different kind of game, the entire thing starts to crumble. Because you can't sell wellness and virtue when people are questioning whether you were connected to one of the most notorious networks of the last decade. You can't build an empire on girl power vibes when people are saying you had knowledge about powerful people doing questionable things and you stayed quiet.
Without asking you to sacrifice the confidentiality of a client, can you characterize...
The disconnect is just too big. Either you're the brave truth teller or you're someone who is moving through those circles staying quiet about what you saw. You can't be both. And here's the brutal truth. People love a redemption story. If Meghan had ever been part of that world and owned it, people might have forgiven her, might have even respected the honesty. But that's not what this is. This is allegedly hiding things, rewriting history, and pretending none of it ever happened while building a brand that's entirely based on transparency. That's the part that doesn't sit right with people. It's not even about what she might have done back then. It's about the lying now, the pretending, the carefully curated Instagram aesthetic that acts like her entire life story started the day she met Harry. Think about what she's actually selling: empowerment, authenticity, finding your voice. That's her entire brand identity.
So here's the thing. Every time you think the Meghan Markle circus can't get any messier, someone lobs another grenade.
That's what every interview, every statement, every perfectly filtered photo is reinforcing. This idea that she's genuine, that she's real. But what happens when people start questioning if any of that is actually true? You can slap all the organic labels and inspirational quotes you want on your products, but if people don't believe you're who you say you are, none of it matters. And listen, this isn't just about Meghan anymore. It's about everyone who bought into the brand. Everyone who defended her, who believed in what she was selling. They're starting to feel like maybe they got played. And then there's Harry. Let's talk about Harry for a minute because this affects him in ways that go way beyond just public embarrassment. This is the man who walked away from everything. And I mean everything. His family, his country, his royal duties, his military titles that he worked years to earn.
Flight puts Ghislaine Maxwell on the same flight with the two of them. What story do you think that Ghislaine Maxwell has?
He torched every single bridge he had in the name of protecting Meghan. He stood up in front of the world and said the royals, the media, everything was toxic and damaging, and he had to get his wife out of there to protect her. He compared it to what happened to his mother. He made it his entire mission to save Meghan from the same forces he believed destroyed Diana. That wasn't just some casual decision. That was burning down his entire life and starting over from scratch. Harry gave up his relationship with his father, with his brother, with the only family he has left. He gave up his home, his role, everything he'd known his entire life. And he did it all because he believed Meghan was the victim. That she was being unfairly attacked, unfairly treated. That she needed him to rescue her from this terrible situation. But what happens when the woman he sacrificed everything for,
and the reason for the fallout has remained one of fashion's most tight.
What it's going to be. And Meghan, very foolishly, I might add,
might have walked willingly through the heart of Epstein's network and never mentioned it? What happens when people are saying she wasn't just some innocent person who accidentally ended up in the wrong place, that she had actual knowledge of what was happening, that she was a close companion to Prince Andrew during those exact years when all of this was going down? Think about what that means. Being a close companion to Andrew during that time period isn't something you just forget to mention to your husband. That's not a small detail you leave out of conversation. That's not, oh, by the way, I used to hang out with your uncle back in the day. If Meghan really was in those circles, if she really did know what was happening, if she really could have said something about Andrew's behavior, then Harry deserves to know. He deserved to know before he gave up his entire life for her.
So here's the
Former
thing.
Prince Andrew
Every time you
Mountbatten
think the
Windsor
Meghan Markle
has
circus
been
can't get
asked
any
by
messier,
American
someone lobs
politicians to
another
answer
grenade.
questions as part of
This
their
time,
And if he didn't know, if she never told him, that's not just keeping a secret. That's betrayal on a level that doesn't just break trust, it shatters everything. Because Harry didn't just leave the royals for some generic reason. He left specifically because of how the royals treated Meghan. He painted them as the villains, painted her as the victim, and built his entire narrative around protecting her from them. But what if the royals knew things about Meghan's past that Harry didn't? What if that's part of why there was so much tension? What if they were trying to warn him and he wouldn't listen because he was so convinced they were just being cruel to her? That changes the entire story. It means Harry might have been defending someone who wasn't telling him the whole truth while destroying his relationships with people who were actually trying to look out for him. And here's what makes it even worse. Harry has been so public about all of this.
I want to take a moment to remember exactly why Ghislaine Maxwell is sitting in prison.
The interviews, the documentaries, the book. He's told the world repeatedly how the royals failed Meghan, how they didn't protect her, how they were cold and uncaring and drove her to the breaking point. He's made himself the hero of the story and them the villains. But if it turns out Meghan was hiding something this massive, something this connected to the very family he already has issues with, Harry doesn't just look betrayed. He looks like he was played. Because think about the timeline here. If Meghan was close to Andrew during those years, she would have known the royals were worried about Andrew's associations. She would have known there were questions about his judgment, about the company he kept. She would have walked into that family already knowing things were messy when it came to Andrew and Epstein. And she never said a word about her own connection to any of it. That's calculated. That's not just forgetting to mention something. That's actively choosing.
He abused Virginia Giuffre, claims that he has strenuously denied, as well as gather information on Epstein.
Not to share information that would have completely changed how people viewed her story. And if Harry really didn't know, if she really kept all of that from him while he was out there fighting her battles and burning every bridge he had, that's not just lying. That's letting someone destroy their entire life for you while knowing there's information that would make them question everything. So here we are, all of these pieces sitting on the table. Maxwell naming Meghan from behind bars. This supposed CV document floating around somewhere with contents nobody's seen but everybody's talking about. People saying she was tight with Prince Andrew during those exact years. Files getting locked down while we're being told there's nothing important inside. And Meghan? Total silence. Just Instagram posts about candles and jam like none of this exists. And here's why this story isn't going away. It's not one of those tabloid rumors that burns hot for a week and then fades when the next scandal drops.
Breaking news. Galena Maxwell, days after sitting with the DOJ's deputy director, has filed a motion.
This one's got staying power because it's got too many threads that all lead back to the same place. Maxwell was actually there. She actually knew these people. She's not some internet detective connecting dots from random photos. She was in the room. People who were around back then are the ones talking, not bloggers, not conspiracy theorists, people who were actually part of that world and saw who came and went. When someone who was literally at the center of Epstein's operation points at you and says, yeah, she was there too, that's not something people just forget about. That's not noise, that's signal. And then you've got the whole Andrew connection on top of it. The close companion label, the fact that she supposedly knew Virginia personally, had firsthand knowledge, was there during the years when everything was happening. Those aren't just rumors. Those are specific details about specific
news for Prince Andrew because he loves doing the honourable thing, doesn't he? He told us all that he did the honourable thing by going over, flying all the
time periods with specific people, and nobody's denying them. They're just not talking about them, which somehow feels worse than a denial. Because think about how Meghan usually operates. When there's a story she doesn't like, she fights it. When someone says something she disagrees with, she pushes back. She's never been someone who just lets things slide. But with this, nothing. And the longer that silence goes on, the louder it gets. Every day she doesn't address it is another day people assume the worst. And it's not like she can't see what's happening. She's watching her credibility crumble in real time. She's watching people who used to defend her start asking questions. She's watching the carefully constructed image she spent years building get picked apart piece by piece. And she's choosing to stay quiet through all of it.
No criminal, certainly no one convicted in conjunction with a horrific crime like child sex abuse.
That tells you everything about how scared she actually is. Because here's the thing, if this was all nonsense, if Maxwell was just making stuff up, if there was nothing to any of this, the smart play would be to come out swinging immediately. Deny it all, fire back hard. Make it crystal clear you're not having it. That's what you do when claims are false. You shut them down hard and fast before they have time to spread. But when there's actually something to it, when there's stuff out there that could surface, when you don't know who has what or what might come out next, you stay quiet. You don't give anyone a reason to dig deeper. You don't draw more attention to it. You just hope it goes away on its own. And that's exactly what Meghan's doing. So let's bring this all back together. Maxwell's sitting in prison, naming Meghan out of nowhere. There's supposedly this CV document floating around that paints her pre-royal years in a completely different light.
No, not particularly. I'd rather just go home and visit my family in Blackpool, but the train prices have gone up about 300%. But
People who were actually there are saying she was a close companion to Prince Andrew during the exact years when Epstein's world was in full swing. She supposedly knew Virginia personally, had firsthand knowledge about what was going down in those circles. Files that could shine light on all of this got locked away with the explanation that there's nothing significant inside, even though people were warning Andrew to brace himself for what might come out. And through all of this, Meghan hasn't said a single word. Just silence and lifestyle brand launches. This isn't your typical celebrity gossip that fades after a news cycle. This has real people who were in those rooms pointing fingers. It has connections that stack up too neatly to ignore. It has a woman who's built her entire brand on authenticity and truth-telling, choosing to stay completely silent.
Ghislaine Maxwell, the longtime associate of Jeffrey Epstein, has once again made headlines. Recently obtained
When she's being connected to one of the darkest scandals in recent history. And here's what really matters. Her silence isn't neutral. It's not just choosing not to engage. Every day that goes by without her addressing this is another day people fill in the blanks themselves, and they're not filling them in favorably. They're looking at her history of bending the truth with finding freedom. They're looking at how she fights back against everything else, but not this. They're looking at all these pieces that don't quite fit the image she sold everyone, and they're starting to wonder what else they don't know. The thing about secrets is they don't stay buried forever. Someone always talks. Someone always has receipts. Someone always decides the risk of staying quiet is bigger than the risk of speaking up. And when that happens, not if, when, this isn't just going to be a PR problem for Meghan.
Traveling or at the residences that they were at or at the parties that they were at.
I did not ever at any time see
It's going to be the complete collapse of everything she spent years trying to build. The brand, the image, the credibility, the support. All of it goes up in smoke the second something real surfaces. And maybe that's why she's staying quiet. Maybe she knows something's out there and she's just hoping it never sees daylight. Maybe she's calculated that saying nothing is safer than saying something that can be shown wrong later. Maybe she's banking on people moving on to the next scandal. But here's the problem with that strategy. People aren't moving on. They're paying more attention. They're asking more questions. They're connecting more dots. So here's what I want to know from you. Do you think Meghan knew exactly what was happening in those circles and chose to be there anyway? Or do you think she was just young and naive and ended up in the wrong place at the wrong time? Drop your answer in the comments. And if you think this story is way bigger than most people realize, hit that like button and share this with someone who needs to see it. Because something tells me we haven't heard the last of this. Not even close.